Hello, and welcome to the Power of We podcast. I am your host, Nisa Brown Springman, and the founder of Ignite Your Life. Ignite is a women's holistic health, fitness, and lifestyle community. And for the past 17 years, I have had the honor, privilege, and blessing of being the recipient of the wisdom, strength, knowledge, encouragement, and inspiration that comes from being part of this incredible community. And I want you in on that. In Ignite, this is what we call the power of we. The power of we is the philosophy that Ignite is built upon, which is that two is better than one, and that God created us for community and to do life together. In this podcast, I will have conversations with a wide range of women over a wide range of topics that will provide you with wisdom, knowledge, inspiration, and encouragement. So get ready to be empowered, y'all, because here we go. Hello, and welcome to the Power of We podcast. I am so excited about today. All right, so just a little background. When I envisioned this Power of We podcast all of 7 years ago, our guest today is someone that I knew I had to get on and have a interesting and inspiring and encouraging conversation with, because she embodies the power of we. She epitomizes the power of we, and her story is going to inspire you to know your neighbors, to be neighborly, and to just connect and reconnect. Connect with people who you may have never connected with or thought you could connect with, but maybe reconnect with neighbors who you haven't connected with in a long time, or just friends that you haven't connected with. But there's so many ways that we could go with today's podcast. One is just from a spiritual gifts perspective. Kristin's got a great story about her spiritual gift and just really leaning into who God made us uniquely and individually to be, and trusting Him that when we go with that He's going to honor that and do something really amazing with it, not because we're awesome, but because He's awesome. And then also just the importance of connection and community and the power of we doing life together with others, because according to the longest active study. It was a study in Harvard, as I said, it's active, called the Study of Adult Development. 85-year-long Harvard study that says this: contrary to what you might think, it's not career achievement, money, exercise, or a healthy diet that keeps you happy and or living a long, great life. The most consistent finding we've learned through 85 years of this study is that relationships, positive relationships, keep us happier, healthier, and help us live longer. And I love what they've called this. They've called this social fitness, which totally is what this podcast is all about. Totally is what Ignite is based upon. And it's that our social life is a living system and it needs exercise. And our guest today is Kristin Shell. She is my dear friend who we were calculating the other day, 16 years we have known one another, but we haven't connected in a while. I keep up with her through all the technological means in which we keep up with one another. But I have got just so many amazing questions to ask her about her incredible story and what she's done. So without further ado, Kristin, thank you so much for being here.
I'm so happy to be here. You are a natural at this, and I am so excited about the power of we. So congrats.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, you are, as I said, you are the power of we, which is that two is better than one, and we are better together. And so, okay, tell us a little bit about where you're from, where you currently live, and then we'll go into your family.
Okay. I am seventh generation Texan, so born and raised in Dallas, and came to Austin, which is where my family and I live now, in the 80s, and I've been here ever since. So Austin is home.
But you have traveled many places.
I've traveled. Right. I did a year here and there. I was in Washington D.C. for a couple of years. I lived in France for a couple of years. So anyway, I've been off and on, but couldn't had to get back home to Texas.
Yeah, I understand that as a Texan myself.
Yes.
Okay, so tell us about your family. Tell us who's your husband?
Tony Shell is my one and only, and he and I have been married 25 years, and I still really like him, which is a good thing, right?
Yes.
And we have 4 children, 4 almost grown and flown. Our oldest, Will, lives in Fort Worth, and he is engaged to be married next summer. And then Anna is our oldest daughter. She is in school. She's a senior at the nursing college at Villanova in Philadelphia. And Ellie is a junior pre-med at UT. And our littlest, 4th and final, Sarah is a junior at Hyde Park here in Austin.
Okay, that totally blows my mind because while we've known one another for 16 years, so we were talking the other day how we first got to know one another, which was through a mutual friend of ours who participated in Ignite early on in the early Ignite days, and she invited you to come, and that's how we launched friendship. But I think about 16 years ago, and how old was your oldest? 16 years ago?
She was just born when I started.
So your youngest,
Sarah is.
Yes.
Yes. So Sarah's 16. Sorry, I don't know how old Will was, but Sarah was still itty bitty when we first met.
My goodness.
Yeah.
We haven't aged a bit. While our children are getting older, we're not aging. In fact, I'm sincere about that. You do not look a minute older than you did when I met you 16 years ago.
Well, you are so
okay. So much about the power of we, and we're going to get into the story about the power of we. But so much of the power of we is sharing wisdom, because learning from one another is just one of the best ways to live life, because it can prevent a lot of errors along the way. And I feel like I got a head start on marriage and parenting because of the amazing women that I had in my life. And that's not to say I haven't made plenty of mistakes or I listened to all that, but nonetheless, I think being able to give and receive wisdom is one of the biggest gifts we can give one another and ourselves. And so give us some marriage wisdom.
Oh, marriage wisdom. Men are very simple. At least my husband is, but I have found through the wisdom of the saints and all of my friends that they require really very little. A good meal and some loving, and that's kind of the nicest way to say it. But love your husband well, and serve him well. And for me, that's in the kitchen through his heart, and then just lots of sexy time.
Love that. That's so awesome. You're exactly right. We're the complicated ones in the whole.
We are the complicated ones. And Tony will tell you, there's really only a handful of things I need in life, so.
Yes. And, just some thank yous along the way. Like, thank you for working your butt off for our family.
Yes,
and that goes
affirmations too. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Thank you for keeping it simple for us. Okay. Yes. How about parenting wisdom?
Kind of in the same vein. I mean, I feel like at some point, when they're little, this doesn't apply as much, but as they grow older, it sounds counterintuitive, but take their lead. I mean, your child, will let you know how much direction they need, and then how much, it's our job to let them go, and we're training them to let them go. And they were never ours to begin with. And so, if we just think of them, we are guardians. And as much as we love them and as much as we want to do right by them, it's really their, course to chart. And so, I don't know. I think, and especially in this day and age, we hover and we're, it's much different. I'm a kid of the 80s. We were the forgotten generation, right? Our parents didn't know where we were all the time. And exactly. And not that that's, the right way to parent, but I do think, that the things we can teach them to be successful adults is to give them those wings early on.
Totally. I love that. And I just love what you said. They are ours. God has gifted them to us.
Right.
They're
Right.
his.
They're
And they are
his.
our little gifts. And we have to remember that. When I oftentimes, or when I forget that, or I should say when I remember that, it just takes like, you can take an exhale.
Right.
There are little gifts that we get while we're on this earth, and just do as good as we can, and let him
Right.
intervene all the time. Okay, awesome. Thank you. I could have a whole podcast on just the marriage and the parenting. One day we will. But okay, so to what you started in Austin, Texas, how many years ago?
I knew you were going to ask that. I should have done the math. I'm terrible with dates,
No,
but
I get it. Don't worry.
it's probably 12 or 15 years now.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's been a while.
Yes. All right. So I'll just put it out there and then you can go with it. So Kristin started this amazing movement called the Turquoise Table movement. Front yard people. And the story is so inspiring, and she even inspired me when I lived in Austin to get a turquoise table. My mom in Sun City has a turquoise table. It's in our backyard because there's an HOA who doesn't allow turquoise tables in the front yard. And it's just this whole beautiful thing. So can you tell us how the Turquoise Table movement began?
Well, there's sort of a short version, so I'll tell that just to bring people up to speed who may be wondering, what the heck is the turquoise table? It literally is a picnic table that I put out in my front yard, and I painted it turquoise because that's my favorite color. And I put it smack dab in the front yard. I mean, it is still kind of right out here out my window over my shoulder, probably 4 feet from the curb. And I did that with a hypothesis, and the hypothesis was really, what if? What if we did some of our everyday, ordinary things like eating pizza or arts and crafts projects with my children who were younger, or homework, things that we were doing either in the backyard or in our kitchen table? What if we were to move them out front and just be a little more present in the lives of the people around us? And I just thought, what if? And so I put the table out there and had zero expectations and really no idea whether it would work or people would think I was crazy, or both. But that's how it started.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Were you feeling a void in your heart, or were you feeling like, golly, I feel like I need to know my neighbors more. I need to be more neighborly. Like, what was it what was the catalyst for you to do that?
So that's the longer part of the story. And God had been working, had all my life, obviously, preparing me for something like this. And so you'd mentioned my spiritual gifts. So I, as a young bride, and I think even maybe before I had Will, so this is 24 or 5 years ago, I took a spiritual gifts assessment at our church. And it's just a little quiz, and you can find them online or through your church website probably, but it's probably 50 questions. And it's just to give you an idea of what your spiritual gift is. And so I sat down and I took mine the first time, and I got hospitality. And I didn't want hospitality. And so
what is this all about?
I thought, so this is even more embarrassing that I didn't want hospitality. I wanted a smart gift. Like, I wanted wisdom, or I wanted, I don't know, teaching or something like really important. And I thought hospitality is like baking cakes and cookies. That's not what I want to do. And so I asked to retake the test, and I cheated. I tried to get, all the things. And oh my gosh, Nisa, it turned out that I had no spiritual gifts. And so, the woman she was a longtime church member and friend of ours. And she was like, Kristin, whatever you're doing here, you took it. And it clearly, there's no question, you have the gift of hospitality. I don't know what you were trying to prove over here, but we're throwing this one away. So I had to sit with that for a little bit. And so like I said, did not want this gift, tried everything. And I must have been fighting the gift of hospitality most of my life and didn't even know it. But as I settled into it and yielded to God and said, okay, if you have gifted me with this gift, then maybe show me and teach me what it is I'm supposed to know about it. And the very first thing I learned was that hospitality in Greek means love of strangers.
Oh my God.
I mean, it just sort of, it opened my mind and blew my mind. I was like, wait, where's the oven and the cake and and having people over? Love of strangers? Like maybe Jesus has something for me in this, right?
How did you even come to find that in the Greek?
Through Bible study. And I did a deep dive. and when you ask, and you say, teach me, he will. And another thing that I had studied hospitality in several verses throughout, over time. And there's one in Romans 12:13 that kind of is known as the hospitality verse, but it came to me in a different translation, and it's not a paraphrase; it's an actual translation. But it says, "Take every opportunity to open your life and home to others." And so now I was sitting in this, take every opportunity to open your life and home to others.
That just gave
hospitality.
me that's
right?
a chill maker.
It's still, and I'm 20 some odd years into this, and it still is just so powerful. And so that combined with the love of strangers really shifted my whole axis. And I was like, okay, God, now, I thank you for this gift. And I'm sorry for my disobedience and for being, just a thorn in your side, but teach me. And so for years, I had sort of confused hospitality and entertainment. And there's a time and a place for both. Girl, I love a great party. I love to have people over. But I also noticed that sometimes there's a lot of doing in that, and there's a lot of preparation. And sometimes, I would prepare and I would have a great meal or fun cocktails or whatever it was. But then I'd be kind of spent and tired, and I wasn't bringing my best self forward. And so I learned, that hospitality really is giving of yourself, and not so much about all of the things, that you're preparing, and really just show up for the people, in your lives. And another thing I found out that was really interesting was that at first I thought strangers, and I thought maybe people, I didn't know, or maybe the homeless man on the street, or maybe, someone in an airport that I would never see again. But I realized that sometimes strangers are the people that are right in our own homes and closest to us. And maybe we've gotten, just the relationship, as you pointed out earlier, has maybe gotten strained, or isn't, I wasn't investing, in a friendship or my marriage or one of the 4 children as deeply as I could. So hospitality began to really have deeper and more eternal, really, kind of impact in the way I was looking at things.
Oh my gosh. Well, I have not heard that version of the story. I did know that you were originally in denial that your spiritual gift was hospitality. And you're like, no, I want a really cool one. I want a different one. But it was when you leaned in to God's unique makeup of you and creation and moving into that space of this is how he has gifted me, and now use that. It like took off. Okay. So so then tell us. So then you put this turquoise table in your front yard, and what happened?
Yeah. Well, and so then I'm like, okay, I'm going to see, let's just see how this hospitality thing can work out. And it became the greatest hospitality hack ever, because as women, I'm just going to make a generalization, which I usually don't do, but I've spoken to enough around the country that this is what I usually find to be true, is that we want to have people over, or we long for connection with people. But, and here's the big but, it's usually time or the status of our homes for
Always.
whatever crazy reason. It's my house isn't big enough. Lie, or, my house is too messy. Lie, but we believe it, or whatever the lies, that are swarming in our head. The turquoise table was like a hack to that, because nobody goes inside when you're outside at the front table. And it's kind of, if your yard's a little messy, oh well, it's different than having all your laundry on your dining room table if you're trying to serve dinner, right?
Hey, you too, laundry? I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah. Right? And so it became this really big hack. Now, on the other side, it also became then you have none of those familiar excuses, meaning I'll invite people over when, maybe after the kids get into school, or when they're older, or when they're, this, or there's all these. In fact, in the book, I think I have this little, quiz of like, what are your top 5 things that you say, I will, meet with people or invite people over when, and we all have them. If we're honest, we have multiple ones. And so the table took all of that away. And so I the very first time I had friends over, I texted just a few neighbors, and it was spontaneous. And I was like, come as you are and stay for an hour. And I just want to explain, you've seen this table probably now in my front yard, and I just thought I'd explain it. And the miracle was that everybody I texted showed up, because you know how busy we all are. And so it was just like, this was like a Tuesday, and I said, come by on Thursday. So it wasn't like, it was just sort of hey, pop in, stop in. People came in their workout clothes, or they were on their way to work. It was a morning. And I was surprised that everybody could come. And then B, I was surprised, of course, as how long they stayed. People were texting under the table, skipping workouts, sorry, or, I'm going to be late for work or whatever. And we were around that table for almost 2.5 hours. And it just shows, how hungry we are for that face-to-face time, and that intimate, no agenda, come as you are space. And so I expected that people, towards the middle of the conversation, kind of that they were resonating, and that this was hitting a felt need. What I didn't come to expect was that all of the women sitting around the table went home and ordered tables that very day too. And I was like, they're like, can we get a turquoise table? I'm like, well, yeah, but you just live 4 doors down. Why don't we just use this one? No, we want one too. And I'm like, sure. And then my sister-in-law in San Antonio got one, and then another friend, and then another friend. And I got a text this morning, or an email form thing on the website, that someone put one in New York this morning or this week. They're still popping up. They're all over the country and the world, truly. So
tell us, they're all over the United States, but they're in other countries. Give us some other country information.
13 countries that we know of. We finally quit counting, because it was like, this is God's, and it's fun to kind of know where they are. South America, Mexico, England, France. They're all over. There's one or two. There's one in Rwanda. They're all over. So,
it's definitely
remarkable.
It is remarkable. And there's one, you can't not see a turquoise table and go like, what's that all about? It's a showstopper. And go ahead.
No, I was like, yes. But the funny thing is that this wasn't like a marketing plan, I've had like businesses say, man, you nailed it. And I'm like, this is what you do when you pay attention to God, because I didn't, I was never sitting around, let's create a plan, and let's, what will sell. This was, turquoise is my favorite color. That was as much rocket science as there was behind it.
Yeah. Well, and that's the brilliance of it and the beauty of it. And as you're talking, the other thing that popped into my head, like that, this is what happens when we don't make it about ourselves and we make it about God. When we step out of the way and say, okay, you go, I'll follow wherever, whatever, and however you go. And every single time, explosion of joy and wonderfulness and amazingness. Okay. So, well, we just kind of talked about how it's blown our mind. How has this blown your mind? I mean, it's blown my mind because it went from such a simple thing to like, oh my gosh, it's in now 13 countries. But how has it just blown your mind? When you sit back and think about it all, are you just like, all right, holy moly. Incredible.
I do. I mean, it is incredible. And again, it's all God, because there's no way I could have come up with this, like I just said. And so for me, it's just every morning when I get my little, my updates of, the movement or where people are, or they'll write and ask questions. I'm so touched because God is doing what he's using this whimsical turquoise table, as part of his mission, and his mission all along is the power of we. It is to connect and to love your neighbors and to know one another. And so he will use anything to achieve that purpose, including a turquoise table.
I just love the simplicity of it, which I will quote this scripture, which is all about the power of we, which is Ecclesiastes, which I love that book, 4:9-10, which is 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, which of course we all do, and we all will, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. And sometimes we can feel that way. But all along, the person just next door can be right there, or the person inside your house, or the person just living behind us can be that person for us. Okay, so where to find out about the Turquoise Table? Your website. Is it turquoisetable.com or turquoisetable.com?
Both. You can. The hardest part, spelling turquoise. If you can figure out how to spell turquoise, you will find me. And I think I own every URL out there. So just you could type in Turquoise Table, the Turquoise Table. It doesn't matter. You'll find it.
Awesome. I love it. Okay, so is there any? So you're an extrovert, right? I'm an extrovert. I have no problem going and talking to my fence behind me. Never an issue. So I can talk to any human that ever I have access to. But to the introvert, do you have, or just even the extrovert who might be a little nervous about putting up the turquoise table, or just not really knowing how to be neighborly, what kind of wisdom or guidance can you give them?
Well, most of my friends who are introverts love the table, and here's why. One, it's outdoors. So there's no feeling of being, how long am I going to have to stay? And when I quote this, I'm really quoting my husband, who is an introvert. And so when we go to an event or a party, he'll say, how long are we going to need to be there?
Yes.
Whatever. So there's a comfort in being outdoors. Introverts are far superior at intimate conversations than extroverts. And that is just, I'm a card carrying extrovert, and I always want an introvert by my side. And so the table, there's 6 if you squish, it's pretty intimate. And that I find, like you just said, you could talk to the fence. I find it easier sometimes to talk to a crowd of 1,000 than I do to a crowd of 3. And so in many ways, the table plays to the strengths of introverts, and challenges extroverts to be present and to really be, to focus on the people who are right in front of you. It does that for all of us regardless. And that is my really nice way of saying neither extroverts or introverts get out of this. We are all called to be in community with one another. And so, again, it kind of goes back to that excuse thing. If we work through, I'm an introvert. Well, I'm an extrovert. Well, we could do that all day long, but we're robbing ourselves of the joy of what God has for us when we push through those fears and show up for ourselves and one another.
Gosh, I just love that. Thank you for that little nugget for both introverts and extroverts, because there is nothing more important, or I don't want to put like levels of importance or like grades of importance, but it is so important to be present and in those intimate conversations with just a couple or maybe, of people or maybe one or two. So thank you for that. And that is, you're right. It can sit, 6 people, something like that. Yeah. Well, I will tell you, when we had it in our front yard in Austin, it really attracted. I mean, we would have our neighbors across the street would just come and sit and talk to us. It's just a natural attractor. So I can attest to the community attractor that it is, the neighbor attractor. And so you like to call yourself and what the Turquoise Table does, front yard people.
Yeah. And so really that became our rally cry. Not everyone can have a front, not everyone has a front yard. And so a lot of, the last several years have been, for me, I've been blessed to brainstorm with people and say, okay, great. You live in, New York City or Chicago. Where do people naturally gather? People in the north, where it's not 100 degrees all year round like it is for us. They're like, we have snow, 8 months out of the year. We can't be in our front yards. So, well, then where do people naturally gather? And that's where people have become, this blows my mind too, is how creative God's people are. Libraries. People have put Turquoise Table in library community rooms as a symbol of, hey, here's a public space in our neighborhood we can meet. At farmers markets, where, which is really the whole purpose of a farmer's market, of course, is to exchange goods and to get healthy, yummy food, but it really is the hub of community. And it's like the old village well, if you will. And we don't go to the well for water anymore. And so we need a place. And so whether it's a library or a school or a park or university campuses are using them, think outside of that front yard. It doesn't have to be a front yard. And so
thank you for that. Because see, I don't want to say I'm a rule follower. That's definitely doesn't describe who I am. But if I want to do the Turquoise Table, if I love this mission and I do, then by golly, I want to get a Turquoise Table. I'm going to put it in my yard. But I can't because we live in an HOA kind of neighborhoods. I'm like, oh, what am I going to do? I mean, and it is very, we all build these elaborate, beautiful backyards. So it just pushes us away from community, away from neighbors. But so thank you for bringing that up. To think outside of the box. And one of the things that we talked about here in our neighborhood is to put a couple picnic tables up. And I was like, oh, well, can they be turquoise, please? Because there's this whole amazing movement about the Turquoise Table. So I want to read a quote that you have on your website. It's from the Austin Community College Pinnacle campus. It says, here at the ACC Pinnacle campus, we were looking for a way for students and faculty to engage in a comfortable setting, a place where ideas could be shared and discussed outside of the classroom environment. The Turquoise Table has been the perfect answer for creating that community. It is a welcome place to meet new friends and connect. And I had no idea that it was even in a college campus till I was skimming your website and just looking over everything cool that you have done. So then what would you say for someone like me who lives in the HOA neighborhood where we can't be in the front yard with the Turquoise Table? I mean, I was even going as far as like, okay, maybe we could take it in and out of the garage. What do you think?
Well, don't think that hard. I literally, first of all, start, and just pray and just say, Lord, you've built us for community. It's on my heart. Open a door. And he will. But, it depends on where you are in life too. Okay. And so you've got kind of, 5th and 7th graders. Is that what you said? Okay. Yes. So, you're in the car a lot. I mean, I'm remembering maybe, or maybe on the sports fields a lot or activities a lot. And so think about that, because it has to fit your lifestyle or it becomes another thing to do. And that's not the intent. The intent is to create natural places to interact with people so that you can eventually get to a deeper and meaningful level. So if that means putting a turquoise table or getting turquoise soccer chairs and meeting on the soccer field and just, making a statement that, hey, we're here once a week or 3 times a week or whatever, we're going to do this. Or one of my favorite stories early on was where a group of moms were at the bus stop, and where the bus stop, let out all the kids, and they were like, "Gosh, we're all here, but we're all sitting in our cars, or we're all on our phones scrolling, looking down,
Oh,
and there's like
yes.
8 or 12 of us all here." And so she
Mhm.
brainstormed and put a pop-up table with the turquoise tablecloth on it, and started having like afternoon, like little snack bars and, things for the kids so that they would linger when they got off the bus. And then the moms would linger. So it's just something in your everyday life. It's not that complicated. And, I think too, as you have just said, and it's the whole power of we, if you just have one friend, you can bounce an idea off or just say, "Hey, what if?" And take that same hypothesis. What if this is where we are, from 3 to 5, and that's our witching hour, or 7 to 9, or whatever it is. How could we do our everyday normal activities, but do them together?
I love that. And see, that's how linear thinking I can get sometimes.
All of us.
Oh, and thank you for reminding me that don't try to figure it out. Just do a little simple, ask God, like, how should we do this? What do you think is best? We don't have to figure it all out. It's not for us.
We don't. Another one of my favorite stories, and it just, to me, is just how God will show up. Is it was the desire of this one mom's heart to have people in her home. Had a severely autistic child who it wasn't going to work. Where their home was going to be open and safe for everyone to be there. But her desire for her other child was just to open up her home, and so she was like, "What am I going to do?" So Capri Suns were the big thing at the time. And so she would put a cooler in the front yard full of Capri Suns, and all the other children would just come over and hang out with their older child. And they never even had to set foot in the house. I mean, that's the beauty of it. So it's just, it has to work for your family and your lifestyle and your age and stage where you are in life. I'm seeing that's different now too, because I only have one at home. And so it's a different kind of hub of activity.
That's so awesome. Thank you. Thank you for making it simple for us, because I wanted to complicate it.
Yeah, well, that is my biggest lesson.
Turquoise table inside and outside of my garage. And they are heavy.
They're heavy. I mean, yes. And that has been probably one of the single biggest lessons is, it really, our stories, if we allow them and look at them, parallel all of the stories in scripture. And so, even our little selves today in 2023, we still have the same sin patterns, and we still want to muck things up, just like Adam and Eve back in the day. And so I'm like, you mentioned, I want to make things, I make things harder than they need to be. And so simplicity was not only a survival thing I'm learning, it really can be spiritual too, because when we are keeping things simple, what we're really doing is trusting that the Lord is going to provide and work out all the details for us.
Oh my gosh. We can just hard stop there. It's amazing. You're right. Mic drop.
Mic drop.
Awesome. Oh my God, I love that so much. Okay, you wrote a book, and I think I knew that, but I'd forgotten it. And so when I was going through your website, I was like, oh my God, I got to ask her about this book. So tell us about this book.
Well, again, this is just the power of when you say yes to God, because I didn't seek out and think, "Ooh, I will write a book." It really did just happen. It was a lot of work. Don't get me wrong, but it was a time and place. It was a time for such as this, and it was hard. And it's not like a super smart book. It's a very simple book, but I tend to complicate things again, and so it was hard to write. And but it was a beautiful process. It was it allowed me to really reflect on the story of what God had done in my life, in the hopes that what he does for one, he will do for all. And so anything that I learned, I tried to share and pass on through the story so that others can benefit and let their chapters unfold in their unique and wonderful ways.
Well, I'm definitely going to get the book because I want all of I need more of your spiritual wisdom and your faith in my life. So I'm going to get that book and it's going to sit on my nightstand with all my other important books. So thank you for
Well,
about your book. And what's the name of the book?
the Turquoise Table.
The
And
Turquoise Table.
it really is interesting when we were talking to different publishers about it. Some wanted it in memoir form and some wanted it. And I was like, look, people don't care about me. This isn't a story. It's my story. But, if we're trying to speak, and address to women who are busy and overcomplicate things and maybe have perfectionist tendencies and yet still want and desire to offer hospitality, it's got to be simple. I mean, this isn't, so this is not War and Peace. It's pretty. There's recipes, there's pictures. It's a pretty hardcover book. So hopefully it has achieved what I set it out to do.
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. Okay, so besides planning your first child's wedding, do you have another God-led project that you're working on?
I do. And so this is really interesting. And it is, here's one of the things I've learned is that, we evolve and we change and our seasons change and we get older. God is the same yesterday as he is today, as he will be tomorrow. And so there is a beauty in being 55 and seeing the consistency that God has had throughout my life and that call on hospitality. And that's the same call. It just looks different. And so, yes, the table is still out front. My neighbors, we all know each other now. So, and it's too darn hot, especially in the summer. We will we'll pick things back up again in, October when it dips below 90. But the table for us has a really different sort of iteration and it involves Tony, which I absolutely love. We have partnered with the University of Texas and have established dinners with 16 Longhorns. And students of the University of Texas apply, and it's not a hard application. It's more of just accountability so they know. But they come to our home for dinner. And we have 16 to 18 students several times a semester. And they show up as strangers and they end with, they leave with all of these new friends and connections that they hadn't had. And it's not faith-based. It can't be because it's the University of Texas. But I even love that. I mean, it's even more of a mission for me because there has never been, we started. We do get to love on them. And Nisa, it's incredible. We started these pre-COVID and then they picked back up, I guess, a year and a half or 2 years ago. In fact, we have our first one of the semester next week. It's amazing. Some of the students are international students or they may be juniors or seniors and in their time in Austin have never been in a home. And so it's been a while since they've been invited in a home and they sit cross-legged on our floor with our dog. We have a delightful, it's a led conversation. We use questions, and they go deep and it's kind of Turquoise Table 2.0. And I love it. I love it. And that has become a little contagious. There are a couple of Ivy Leagues now that are doing these dinners with 16 around their college campuses. And wouldn't it be amazing if, if students all over, the United States were invited into homes for a meal and just real conversation and connection?
That is incredible. Okay. How did y'all come up with this?
Okay. Once again, I was on a speaking event and I was on Southwest Airlines. Yay. Go love airlines. And I ended up sitting next to the Dean of Student Affairs and Vice President of Student Affairs at the University of Texas. What are you doing? Oh, I was speaking. What are you doing? Oh, you're the Turquoise Table. Oh, we know about that. Hey, let's do something. And so rather than put them on campus, where they, we just decided, let's try this. Years ago, faculty members used to have, students come to their homes and whatnot. but this is alums. And so we actually now have many dinners going on throughout Austin on any given evening or any given week.
Other peoples who are other
Now that
families.
we're actually recruiting. So if anybody's listening to this and wants to reach out, let me know. But so it's really through alums now, hosting, and they figure 16 is just a magical number. It's, not too big, but it's enough where people feel like they can share. And so literally started on an airplane. And again, I mean, if I had thought, let's try to do it. So it's always reverse engineered. I feel like when God just hands you something, right?
Oh my gosh. That is so beautiful. Yeah. So if anybody has this, like you heard Kristin's story and you're like, I have to do that. Can they get a hold of
college? Yes, just through the website. My email's on there, or you could put it in the show, the show notes or whatnot. But truly, any university, because I've actually sat in on a couple calls now with Cornell, and I can't even remember. There's another one too that was doing this, and it's just it's a simple idea. It's just I for whatever reason have done it, and so now it's my job to share.
You being a mother of 4, me being a mother of 2. That would make my mama heart so happy to know that our children were being invited into a loving, warm home of some alumni in the area, just because, to have meaningful conversation and to know one another and have a meal. Do you feed them?
Absolutely. And yes. And there's some, red tape with UT, as you can imagine, a state-run school. So they actually provide it because, we're not allowed to in case somebody, gets sick or something. So it's actually pretty easy for me. But you're in collegiate circles, how important and this age group is, and how Tony and I are convinced, that the mental health crisis that we're in, you quoted the Harvard study earlier. I mean, we're in the middle of a loneliness epidemic, and were before COVID. And so how can, from a university perspective of 50,000+ students, how can we make it an intimate, environment where people don't fall through the cracks? And that was huge for both of us. And so we said yes, and God does the rest.
Oh my God. Well, if that's not a bumper sticker, what is so great. Oh my gosh. I love this so much. Okay. I have a million questions to ask you, but you've covered every single one of them in your incredible storytelling and just being able to articulate this beautiful story. So, I have some rapid fire questions for you.
Ooh, okay.
So, okay, but first, you know what? I think you've answered this question, but let me just ask you this question because you might have more to elaborate on. How it has this movement impacted your faith and your relationship with God? Because you were already deeply faithful, have always been, but I would imagine it's taken it to another level.
Yes, this is my dance with Jesus. And it is, yes. I mean, so I had been in Bible study and had studied his word and, for a long time, but this, it's how I walk alongside, dance with. I mean, it has made me, closer to him. And it's given me insight as to, and really markers for when I'm getting off track, because not every day, is a beautiful spiritual mountain, top. And so, it's just taught me, okay, when am I out of sync? When am I, needing time away, time to slow down, time to, be in scripture more. And so it's given me really a rhythm, of how to live my life, both indoors and outdoors, at the table.
Oh, Lee, I love that. I love that you said it's giving you markers. That is really profound. Thank you for that. And thank you for living out your faith, because you are a faithful warrior, who just joyfully goes about listening to God, dancing with Jesus. Another bumper sticker. Don't mind me. I'm just dancing with Jesus. It's so great.
But
I
it's
love it.
exhausting. I will tell you, some they're not all slow dances. So, be
Some of
prepared.
them are doing the salsa on
Some of
fast
them you're
forward.
like, wow, really good today.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And he will talk. Here's what I love. I love, everything about God. But the thing that I love so much about him, and this is what the power of we also is he uses everything and everyone to speak to us. From billboards to songs to books to somebody I talked to on the street to my podcast buddy to my neighbor. He's always communicating to us. I mean, I love gardening and yard work, like through my flowers, through the butterfly, through the hummingbird that just dashes right past me. I mean, he's always communicating with us. And
always.
we are looking down, and I'm guilty as the next person, or just distracted. And that is, by design, and that is not from him. Satan tries really hard to distract us all of the time to prevent us from hearing God's voice. And when we will pull back the distraction layers and, to use your wisdom, just keep it simple, right? Like, it can become clear as the clearest body of water, to look through all the body. But it's hard, it takes discipline. But nonetheless, and it doesn't mean he's gonna take you on a straight line dance.
No, it doesn't.
Wonderful.
But it's a spiritual muscle. I mean, to kind of go with the, with the
Totally.
workout, thing, but it is. And we have to, you get memory markers, but you get those spiritual markers too. And so when you've lived through things, you remember and you hone that muscle and you're like, I've been here before and this is what God did. And this is how he prevailed. And here's what we'll do again. And so I think that's been one of the biggest lessons, too, of just, okay.
Yep.
He's consistent.
Yes.
And his callings in our lives, if we will just pay attention.
Yep. And as I probably will repeat this every single podcast episode, but as my wise professional coach, she's beyond a professional coach, dear friend Martha Lynn Mangum, always reminds me when I'm like, oh my gosh, why do I make this so complicated? Or, oh my gosh, how did I forget that? She's like, because we're silly people. Because we are just silly humans who just, we're just silly. And so instead of being like, I'm such an idiot, how do I keep forgetting that or whatever? Like, we're just silly. And that's okay.
We're just messy sheep. We're just messy sheep in search of a shepherd.
Totally. Always. All right, here we go. Rapid fire questions. Your favorite, besides the Turquoise Table book, what is your favorite book and why?
Oh, probably Lonesome Dove, because I'm a 7th generation Texan and I have a huge literary crush on Gus McCrae. It's just my favorite.
Oh my gosh.
I love it. I reread that every few years.
Do you really?
Yeah. Oh, I love it. That
is so fun. Okay. What's your favorite quote?
It's not even a quote. It's got to be just the Romans 12:13 from scripture again, which is take every opportunity to open your life and home to others, just because it's scripture. And when we read into that and lead it and pray it over ourselves and others, it's alive. And that's what I cling to.
That is so beautiful. You said Romans 12:13. Okay,
Romans
thank
12,
you.
13.
Okay, I know you're a big bundle of fun, mixed extrovert. What's your favorite concert and why?
The whatever one I'm going to, which is about one a month with my husband.
That's so awesome.
Isn't that so fun? We just went to Lionel Richie and Earth, Wind and Fire on Tuesday night. So that was maybe my favorite. But we got a seating deal at Moody, and we go at least once a month. And so we love music, and Moody's over the top. We love it.
It is incredible. I mean, I do confess, I do get FOMO when I see and hear about all of my friends and the concerts they're going to at the Moody Center in Austin. Like, what the Look at all these
Yeah.
incredible performers that come there.
Oh,
all the
we have
time.
seen all the time. I mean, it has really, but we're at a different season too, where our kids are mostly, Sarah is still at home, but she's gone all the time anyway. And so Tony and I, it's so stinking fun. So we're kind of big concert goers.
I think you should continue that.
I think we will.
List, find something fun to do with your fam or with your husband. Keep it fun, right? As far as marriage is concerned. Okay. Favorite podcast and why? And you did have a podcast, still do or did. So I know that was probably.
Well, no, I love podcasting. I actually miss it. And, sometimes I think, oh, maybe I'll, revamp my own podcast. But I try not to leap ahead of the Lord in what I want to do and then what I'm being called to do. So I love Kelly Corrigan right now. I think she is just a voice of wisdom. We're similar ages and stages. And so I love her podcast. So Kelly Corrigan is who I'm listening to. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. What would you tell your 21-year-old self?
Girl, it's going to be just fine. And that's going to be better than fine. It's going to be amazing.
Love that. Love that. Okay. Last and final question. What is the best wisdom you have ever received?
Oh, there's so much.
No, that's a hard question.
I know. Okay. Well, this is really interesting. And this isn't the one that I thought I was going to mention, but before I went abroad, I did several, I think it was my junior year abroad though. I was at a dinner party with my parents, and one of my father's friends, who sadly is no longer with us, said to me, and this was like 2 nights before I was leaving for France. And he said, imagine that you have a wine bottle, a big Magnum. I didn't even know what a Magnum was, but the biggest wine bottle that you can have. And he said, take all of your memories and all of the moments that you're about to live and fill that Magnum up, because someday you'll be old like me and you're going to want to sip off of all of those memories. And I didn't really appreciate it. Of course, at the time, I was more interested in drinking the Magnum than I was filling it back up, But as I've hit probably the age that he is, I'm probably the age he was when he gave that to me. I think it's so beautiful, and it's just memories, and hang on to them, and you'll savor them the rest of your life.
That is so amazing. You are amazing. And what a gift and a blessing that you are to me, have always been. And just getting to go even more in depth in this story of you just dancing with Jesus and following his lead. Look what he's doing through you. You are an inspiration. And I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for sharing all that you did. And now I'm going to reach out to Oral Roberts and see if we can't start this little college hosting group.
See? I mean, that's exactly, and just see if they, and then I'll come talk to y'all about how to start it. Not that you need me, but that way I can get to see you.
Oh, for sure. And we're going to get some Turquoise Table out by the bus stop here in our neighborhood. So we'll have a to be continued podcast. Well, we'll talk about what happened after all of this, because you have just planted so many amazing seeds in my heart and given me such inspiration. I know you will to everyone who just listened. So Kristin, thank you so much.
Thank you, dear one. Oh, I'm excited for you. And thank you for saying yes and starting the podcast. You were an encouragement to many and me this morning. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, it's been something I have been just not trusting God on. He planted in my heart a long time ago, but all my little ridiculous insecurities and the what ifs and, the fear of not being perfect. Anyway, just time to listen and be obedient and take a step forward. So thank you. You are amazing. I appreciate you. I'm so grateful for you, and to be continued.
All right. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to the Power of We podcast. And if you happen to be in Austin or San Diego, we would love for you to join our fitness community. But if not, I would love for you to join me and our at-home fitness community. Most importantly, thank you for being part of the Power of We family.